All right, welcome back. And this video is going to focus on doing a more sophisticated RAG system. If you notice, it has a lot more components compared to the previous one that we did in previous video. And that was more for training purposes, so you can get your hands dirty opposed to, what you would see in an actual system that you want to have for yourself or for a client, right? If that's what you're doing as an agency. Now, there's two major components here of this RAG system. Is when a file is created, so when someone actually creates a file within that document, within that folder, excuse me, and then when an already existing file gets updated. Okay, so when that happens, we want to make sure that the embeddings, the vectors that's already in Pinecone get updated as well. Now, best practice is to actually just delete the current vectors and then create new ones with the updated documents. And that's what's here. And if you look closely, this part right here, it's virtually the same thing. It's as this one. Okay, virtually the same thing. The only difference here is that the download file has other layers in between here. We have an update of the vector IDs that need to get deleted. And then this one, it's an update opposed to an add. Now, before, we're actually going to be going through this quickly in this video. Then we're actually going to test it out. And then on the following video, we're actually going to build this entire thing, and we're going to walk into more of the thought process as to why we're doing things a certain way, because that's the most important thing. Not actually just giving you a template like, okay, anyone could do that, here, take this template, plug it, but you actually understanding the thought process as to why we're doing certain actions. Okay, so let me pause the video here. I'm going to drink a little bit of water. All right, so let's go quickly high level what's happening here. Okay, file gets created in the folder that gets fetched. It could be multiple. Then it gets downloaded in the N8N environment. That goes through Pinecone. This is basically the same thing we went through in the previous video. Okay, so I'm not gonna get too much in the weeds here because we already know how this thing works. Once Pinecone's done, we're actually structuring the number of vectors created and the file name. This is going to be crucial because we're actually going to pass this through here. Now, unfortunately, Pinecone nor Supabase have a way to get the IDs from the embeddings or the vectors. Okay, so I'll show you guys when we run something. Right now we don't have no records. But basically, it's saying, hey, out of the vectors created, we need to pass that value and we're going to fetch it here as the top K. Remember, the top K is basically the top number of vectors we want to pull, right? So in this one, we're just passing, hey, this is how many vectors are created and this is how many we're actually going to fetch. Now, I want to do this one by one in case something breaks. And it's cleaner to debug. And I think I mentioned this in previous videos, right? So we're actually going to get the embeddings, the vectors, right? We're going to pass the IDs. Right here is we're going to we're getting the IDs. And then we're actually going to be adding these. This code node here is structuring the name and vector ID. Basically, so it can look like this, right? So we're going to get the file name, we're going to get the vector ID, and then we have this column that's for the second flow, which is an updating. So again, remember I mentioned we're going to delete the vector and then recreate it with the updated document. That's what that's for. Consider this as your log. You don't want to delete anything from your log. You want to have an identifier. This is your identifier, whether it's active or deleted. If it's deleted, it's going to have a 1. If it's active, then it's nothing, right? I didn't want to overcomplicate this. But, okay, going back to here. That's going to loop around per the specific file name that we are creating. So if there's two documents, it's going to loop through the first document, it's going to fetch, and it's going to be done. Okay, it's gonna update the vectors the file one by one. Okay, the next thing is, okay, when a file gets updated, we first retrieve the vector IDs. Okay, we want to know, hey, these are the vector IDs that we need to delete, right? The way it gets retrieved, we need to actually convert it into an array where it has all the values under one array. And then that array needs to get converted to a string because that's how the request requires it. Okay. These are kind of things that as you building, you're going to come across as to why things are not working. And this is where you need to leverage AI. Okay. Specifically Claude. It's very, very good at this at these things. Now, once we have that, we're going to delete the previous vectors. And then we're going to call again to check if those vectors exist. This is more of a safety net. If they don't exist, great. We're going to do, it's a two true path, right? It's a fork here. We're first going to say, awesome. We're passing the vector IDs. We're splitting them out because the way it's currently structured here, it's not how we want to have it here. We want to make sure it's by a specific item, okay? And then the next thing, it will mark it as a 1 here. And again, I'm gonna go through this. I'm gonna showcase it before we start building it. Okay. Then this part is basically the same thing, right? All of this right here is the same thing as this. So I'm not gonna go into detail here on that. So let's put this to practice now. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go to the folder I created, which is dummy documents. You can see there's nothing there, right? There's nothing, there's no data in the vectors ID. There's no data in vectors created. So we're gonna start fresh. We're gonna run this right now. So what I'm gonna do is actually add some documents, and it's already active. So you're not gonna see this, the little circle in orange. We're gonna see the logs or the execution. Okay. So through that process, I am not going to stop the video because I want you guys to really see how these things work. Okay, so documents added. We're gonna go back here and we're gonna go to executions, and then this one should be triggering. Okay, so we're gonna go here, 27. Okay, and there's gonna be one that has, the refresh. It's gonna be a little bit orange, and we're gonna be able to see it start. Through this process, you can definitely, make the video go faster, and but yeah, I'm not gonna stop because I really want you guys to see how this thing works. So anytime now, this thing should be refreshing and triggering. Give it a couple of seconds, usually between 30 seconds to a minute. It's gonna trigger. There you go. Okay, it's running, right? So there should be nothing in, yep, vectors created. So we should be seeing vectors created soon. Once this, there you go. And then we should be seeing the vectors ID, right? So being created. Hopefully the weight module, it's sufficient in order for us to, in order for it to be pulling the information. Okay, so still running. I'm gonna give it a couple seconds here. Usually it doesn't take that long. There you go. Perfect. And here are the vectors created for the specific ones, and it should be completed relatively soon now because there's really nothing else to add. Perfect. Succeeded. We can see here that we have the vectors created 13 and 9, correct? For the documents, we're going to see it's 13, and we're going to count for corporate. There should be 13. Perfect. And this one should be 9, right? Perfect. 9. All right. So now what happens when there's actually a change in the documents, right? So we're gonna make some changes here, and I'm gonna have Claude just do some random additions to the document, and I'm gonna pause, and I'll be back. Okay, so I decided to just grab these three sections right here, and I told Claude to just expand on them, nothing fancy, right? So here we go. We're gonna review forecasting, historical trends analysis, and seasonal adjustments. Perfect. Customer-based forecasting, market share analysis, economy, and yeah, this is all good. This is actually some of the stuff that when I was at corporate we should be looking at. It's great, great. Pessimistic, base. Yep, all of this is yep. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this. All right, and I'm gonna substitute. I'm just gonna overwrite whatever it's in here the with the new data. Okay, and okay, we're done. We're done here. We're getting off the document. Okay, corporate financial planning guy. Perfect. And now we should see another, again, 30 seconds to a minute. We should see another refresh happening here, which is going to be triggering the bottom flow. Okay, so we ran this one. We're going to see that this one, the top portion ran. Perfect. Now there's going to be another refresh, and it's going to be the bottom portion here. All right. So again, we're going to give it a couple of seconds. You can definitely speed this up so you don't have to wait. But I really want you guys to get a sense of, how these things are. So when you deal with it yourself, you have some notion of it, right? There we go. Okay, it's running. Perfect. And we should be seeing the vectors being updated. Perfect. From 9 to 20. Beautiful. And then this being deleted. Again, only adding a 1. And we should be seeing the new embeddings for corporate financial planning analysis guide being added here at the bottom, right, with the new vector IDs. So it's gonna go through it and still going. Perfect. It's getting the information. And there we go. And yeah, new embedding, new vectors created, embeddings ran. You can see that when you have more documents, more things added to the documents, it's not going to be apples to apples, right? We had 9 here, but in the new document, we have 20 new vectors created. Now, we have to ask ourselves, well, if we really want to update the respective vector, well, which one goes where, right? Do we get the first 9 and then overwrite? Do we get the last 9? Do we get somewhere in the middle? Like, it's not clean. There's more logic. So the best practice here is delete the embeddings altogether and then add them. Now, that said, we should have had 22 records. However, because these were deleted, we should have 13. And then we had 20 added. So we should have 33 embeddings in, and there you go, 33 vectors. When I use embeddings, vectors, just think about the same thing, okay? But these means vectors being pushed. Embeddings is the process of generating the vectors. So sometimes I use it, as the synonym, but the vectors created 33, so everything is working perfectly fine, right? So when we go here, this is still running, interesting. Okay, succeeded. Okay, so it succeeded at 43 seconds. So we're gonna see this running, right? And everything ran perfectly. There are no errors. Beautiful, right? So let's go back to the editor. So what's gonna happen every time you add a new document, it's gonna go through here. Every time you do an update, it's gonna go through here. Okay. And then what you would want to do with this type of system is, again, connect it to an internal um, Slack, Telegram channel that you're working internally, whether it's for yourself or if you're working at corporate, right, and you're trying to add some level of automation to your to your day to day, right? This is the way to do it. We can definitely add an AI agent as a chatbot, right? We embed the conversation on your website, and then we have it loop through here. So every time we add more information, the AI agent has the latest information it can pull from. All right, so next video, we are going to go ahead and do this from scratch. It's going to be a pretty lengthy video. So get ready, okay? And then again, I mean, we're gonna have this as a template on the in the course. So if you just do not want to do it step by step, just get the template and you're ready to go, right? The only thing you need to do is just make sure you change your credentials and so forth. All right, let's get into the next video.